So I thought about just not making a video about this because I don't know anybody anything. But I feel like there's some things that I was wrong about that Spirit took the last year to integrate into my lessons. And I feel like it's only right or fair or whatever the right word is here for me to admit that. Not just publicly, but like to myself. And the first one is separation. I do believe that sometimes separations are necessary. I was talking to somebody else who is a twin flame, a newly discovered twin flame. And I think, twin flame, I think a lot of people in the spiritual community are quick to be like, well, those are so rare, you're probably not. And like maybe it's something, like they're quick to denounce. But at the end of the day, only you know if you are a twin flame and if those are the things that you're experiencing. And while, yes, I think it's healthy to dissociate from the labels, there are certain things that I think need to be explored and at least not invalidated in somebody else's journey while they're going through these things. So like when somebody messaged me and they were like, I think I found my twin flame. This is what's going on. Like, what do I do? Help. I'm not going to like say like, well, maybe it's not your twin flame. Maybe this is just like, I'm not going to invalidate the experience. I'm going to say like, okay, well, this is what twin flames experience. If that's lining up for you, this is a hard road. These are the things you need to look out for. This is how you need to present your energy. You need to focus on yourself. You need to focus on your own goals and your own life. And the less obsessive you are, the better off you'll be. Like keep it in a magnetic energy rather than flipping the magnet to a polarity that's going to repel. You want to avoid the runner-chaser dynamic altogether, blah, blah, blah. So, we're going through like all of these things. And I was telling her about my theory, which is that separation is avoidable. That if both people were to confront their emotions and their healing and everything like that they might not need to separate. And that's been a big point of controversy here, right? Whether separation is necessary, whether it's not necessary, blah, 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 blah. And I don't believe in preaching that people should separate. I think that spirit and the universe will do that if that's what needs to happen. Separation will be natural. You don't need to coach it. That's what I believe. But I also don't believe that it has to happen, that you guaranteed are going to have to separate. I believe that it's an option and that you can benefit from it. And, you maybe even you get together and it's fine for a long time and then you have to separate. Who knows? Who knows how it's going to go down? But I was telling her, like, I haven't seen it go my way yet, where people don't have to separate. But I would like to believe that that's true. And she was like, well, hopefully I'll be the test case here that doesn't have to separate. Just through self-awareness and monitoring their own energy and being present and focused on themselves and, all of these things, choosing the right choices here because they know what to look for. And I would love for that to be the case. I really do. But I also know in my heart right now that the amount of growth that I have gotten, the amount of lessons that I have learned came from being part of this separation process. Multiple times, multiple people, multiple situations. And you know what? When two people, divine counterparts, twin flames, whoever you are standing in front of each other and interacting and part of this process, it's intense, right? And when you're mirroring each other's energy and parts that you need to heal, it's so intense that it's difficult to stand in front of each other for too long. And eventually you wind up having somebody run or take a step back or whatever because it's so intense. And maybe you can withstand it, or at least when you have to bounce back a little bit, maybe you're not going far and you can come back. And like then when it gets too intense again, you're just like, okay. And then you go back. And maybe that's possible, where both people are self-aware and nobody gets vindictive, and like nobody has to go that far for this separation to be fine. But that doesn't mean they won't happen, and even if you are of the mind that you don't need to do that, maybe they feel like they do. So the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm feeling like maybe I wasn't right. Maybe I wasn't right that separation isn't necessary. Maybe it is something that's unavoidable, and maybe it benefits us. In which case, the King of Pentacles would have been correct. I'm still not willing to concede that it has to happen and it always has to happen. Maybe multiple times. But I will at least say that I disagree with coaching that it should happen. I don't think that you should have to say, I think you guys need a separation. But I'll at least admit that maybe they do have to happen. And the other point of concession, after a lot of reflection over the last year, coming out of retrograde, I've been examining a lot of these past situations, right? That revelation today about nobody else owing me anything. That's something that the King of Pentacles said at least a year ago. That the masculine doesn't owe you anything. Not an apology, not affection, not reassurance, nothing. And maybe that's true. Maybe some of those things are considerate, but they don't owe them to you. And maybe it's not the right mentality for you to think somebody owes you an apology. Because we teach that we don't need one, right? That's what we in the spiritual community regularly perpetuate, that we don't need an apology, because chances are a lot of the time you're not going to get one. You need to give yourself closure, you need to give yourself forgiveness, you need to forgive others for yourself. But we often don't say that the other person doesn't need to give you one, because everybody wants that apology. They feel owed that apology, and they feel when they have to move forward without one and give themselves closure and blah, 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 they still feel like they're owed that apology, but they're just not going to get it. And maybe the healthier mentality is that we're not owed shit. Because things happen the way that they happen, and there's lessons for the other person in the way the situation unfolded too. Maybe what we should be saying is that that nobody owes us an apology. I still believe in apologizing when I'm wrong, and I'll be the first one to admit it if I'm wrong. If I genuinely feel like that's where I landed and that's what I've discovered, even if there's conditions like this, you know what I mean? Where okay, maybe I was wrong about these things, but I still feel this way. This is how I do it. But I do admit that I'm wrong, and I do apologize. Maybe this is a need for an apology. I'm sorry. For judging harshly, for demanding something that I wasn't owed, for giving an ultimatum that wasn't right. That's not what friends do. If we were ever friends, If that was ever true, then I'm sorry. Genuinely. And I know that we were both there to teach each other and to learn from each other and to blast the doors off of their hinges sometimes in a thought-provoking kind of way. And I want you to know that I love you, and that no part of this journey has ever made me feel differently than that. There's still purpose in all of this. Everything will be as it's meant to be. Anything else, Spirit? seconds.